Well, while I was in Washington, D.C., it was great to make contact with the Manx Association. We had a night out at the Press Centre, Press Club the other night, and you came along, Bill. But a story I wanted to use separately because you're an enthusiast, I think is the best way of putting it, on languages, particularly Celtic languages.
That's true, Celtic languages in particular.
So bear with us on the story because it's interesting. You have learned to speak Irish, and all those sort of things, and you decided to add Manx to your itinerary, basically.
That's right. I was learning Irish in New York City back in the 1980s, and learning Scottish Gaelic as well, because I have family connections to Nova Scotia, where there's still Scottish Gaelic spoken. And I found out there was a third Gaelic language called Manx. And I said, what's this? And I began to look into it and began to try and learn it.
But at the time, you're saying that there was very little to go on. I mean, you learned it from books, didn't you?
Oh, that's right. It's not like today at all. There was, I had to spend a good deal of time trying to find books, and eventually in an Irish bookshop in New York City found a copy of First Lessons in Manx by Goodwin, which was, I think, written back around 1900. So still in print, and I began to go through that. But of course, when you buy a book like that, and there's no audio file, there's no internet, believe it or not. And so I'm guessing at the pronunciation, and I'm basing it on what I know of Irish or Scottish Gaelic at the time. So it wasn't until many years later that I began to actually hear Manx online.
And were you pretty good, you reckon? I mean, you got it?
Well, I've got some of it anyway. I've got some of it.
So you learned to speak Manx, but not at the time having any more association with the Isle of Man until you did some research.
Until I did some family research, and I found out that indeed I had a family connection.
Go on.
And it was kind of like, you know, some of my family, my ancestors bounced off the island on the way to Canada, to North America. And they had come from Scotland, and they had probably settled on the island in the 1760s. And it was my great-great-great-great-grandparents, Thomas Turnbull and his wife Jean, and their two children, who were on the Isle of Man in Douglas, and who emigrated in 1775 for what's now Prince Edward Island and later Nova Scotia.
And you're a bit of a Manxophile now, aren't you? Because you follow us. You follow MTTV.
I follow MTTV, yeah. And you know, also Culture Vanen, you know, online, and you know, I'm loving all that I'm getting.
What is it about the Isle of Man? It's lovely. The people we met the other night, everyone had a great time. There's a camaraderie there, isn't there?
There is, you know, and there are a couple of things. I mean, there are a number of people in the North American Manx Association who have that direct family connection. So it's in their direct heritage. Their grandparents came over, or their great-grandparents. But then there are people who have no real connection, or maybe as little of a connection as I do. And what fascinates them, I think, is the Isle of Man itself as a unique place within the British Isles, as a unique place culturally in terms of its heritage, its Celtic connections. That was my introduction. There was really, when I lived in New York, there was no local branch of the North American Manx Association at the time. So everything I could find was found through a connection through, say, someone at the Irish Arts Centre who might have some information. The Celtic League American branch had an active chapter, and of course they were interested in Manx heritage and culture and politics and all the rest. So, you know, it took quite a while to find stuff, but there are a lot of people who are simply interested in the Isle of Man for its own sake, which I think when people who are from the island, perhaps, or who are of Manx heritage, but American or Canadian, first come across, you know, it surprises them, because they're used to being, yeah, it's something different for them.
Do you ever get a chance to use your Manx?
I do, you know. We've had two study groups in the Washington, D.C. area, both associated with the Greater Washington Area Manx Society, and now with NAMA. And, you know, we've had them on and off for years. The most recent one, we have a group called Ceartgal na Gaeilge, the Manx Circle, the Manx Gaelic Circle. It's actually on Facebook, and people can go there and see, you know, news about the Manx language through our site. We're not doing classes right now. But we had classes for a couple of years. But there are also, you know, there are people scattered around North America who have an interest in Manx. One of the other people who's, you know, more fluent than I am and has done a lot of research in Manx is Tom Lee, and he's based in Hartford, Connecticut. I know a gentleman named Ron Crow who's based in San Antonio. And he's of Manx heritage, and he can trace his Crow family roots back to the 1600s on the island.
Wow.
So he's begun to try and learn Manx. And we'll get online and do things through Skype once in a while, or Google Hangouts. But it's very hard to keep that up.
Sure.
You know, and it's something I would really like to see the North American Manx Association take a bigger role in. I'm on the board of trustees. I'm a trustee. I kind of have the language and culture portfolio. I just made that up, but I'm claiming it. And for our last biannual convention, which was held in Annapolis, Maryland, not too far from here, we had a whole series of workshops on Manx culture and heritage, looking at some of the Manx immigrants who came to this area, looking at song and music, and also looking at some Manx history. And we had a full workshop on Manx. What? And we had 24 people in the workshop. It was the first one that NAMA had ever done. And NAMA does give out awards on an annual basis to Manx youth, including awards for Manx language achievements. Mm-hmm. You know, but here in the U.S. or in Canada, it's been more focused on being a fraternal organization or a heritage organization, not as much a cultural organization. So it was really great to see we had 24 people sign up and come to that workshop.
And back to Culture Van, and they've got these websites, Learn Manx and all this sort of thing now, so potentially it could increase, couldn't it?
It could very easily, and it's just fantastic what they're doing. I've met with Adrian Kane, who you know well, and with Prisha Madrill, and Ruth Kagan, the singer, who I think is doing a great job as an ambassador for the culture. She's singing with Scottish Gaelic and Irish singers and musicians. It raises the profile of the Isle of Man to a whole new level, and Manx culture to a new level. So we like to see more of that here too.
Okay, well thanks so much. I appreciate the tie, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Big effort there, the tie today. And, you know, hopefully it goes from strength to strength.
Good to meet you.